What's going on, guys? This is Aaron from Departures Capital. We're here with Kyle Floyd, CEO of VOX Royalties. Nice to have you back, Kyle. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. And Aaron, Happy New Year to you. And thanks for having us back on the program.
Yes, for sure. So it's been a little while since we last spoke, not too long, just about a month. So can you start by giving us an update on the company, everything that you've been up to, and more so, plans for the new year?
Absolutely. So 2021, really a banner year of success for the firm. Obviously, that was kind of underpinned by huge success in terms of revenue growth, which was driven by going from one producing asset to five producing assets. We had over 170,000 meters being drilled on our royalty-linked projects last year, which really leads the way in terms of our peer grouping of companies. And then major discoveries, major developments in terms of new engineering studies and economic studies around our assets that complemented new discoveries on those land packages. So really kind of from the bottom up, just a huge upswing of momentum in the portfolio. It's what we've been telling investors for a long time was going to happen, was going to continue to happen by our ability to find really good royalties at really good value with really a lot of momentum and catalysts in front of them that our mining engineers and our technical experts and geologists have identified as really quality assets. So that, kind of, I would say, systematic approach to finding value in the royalty sectors powered us to be the top performing royalty company in terms of stock price in 2021. But as we look forward into 2022, I would tell you that I think we're setting up for another fantastic year, probably even better than what we did in 2021. So very exciting time for VOX Royalty Corp. I think it's a very exciting time for our shareholders. What I think you'll see in terms of 2022 growth, we believe we're going from 5 to 8 producing assets based on operator guidance. There's some conservatism, I think, baked into those numbers. That'll obviously underpin continued revenue growth. And then, today we announced an absolutely, I won't call it transformational, but it is, really a banner transaction for us to acquire and bring in to the portfolio. We can get more into that, but more like that kind of on the horizon for 2022. More fantastic transactions that we've scoured the world over for, and we're bringing the best of the best for our shareholders.
For sure, it's been exciting to see you guys consistently execute. Just thinking back to previous interviews. So VOX recently announced, like we were talking about, plans to acquire royalties on the Sibanye-Stillwater 18 million ounce Limpopo PGM project. Can you tell us more about this exciting news?
Yeah, so we announced that we've executed definitive agreements to acquire these two royalties, which cover the entirety of what is essentially a 50 million gold equivalent ounce resource over a huge PGM project operated by Sibanye. They're a $10 billion operator based in Johannesburg with significant operations also in Montana, operating the Stillwater mine. So really globally significant operator. They've put this in their bucket of assets that they're working on bringing back online over the next 2 to 5 years. It was a previous producer. It's fully constructed. It went on care and maintenance after paying on this royalty and being in production in 2009 as platinum went from $2,000 an ounce to $200 an ounce. But the basket of metals that make up this commodity matrix that fuel the revenue for this asset are up 7x on average from where it was back in 2009. So it gives you some indication what was really, maybe if it was a marginal project back then, you look at a metal price basket increasing by 7x, and that's weighted for what commodities drive that revenue. That's hugely impactful. They've been announcing studies on it and really, telling the market that this is, certainly something that they're working on. So when you look at a transaction of this size, scale, and nature, hard to recall anything in the last decade in the royalty space that's been executed at anywhere near this value on this quality.
Very exciting for you guys. So VOX currently has a lot of exciting projects on the go. As we mentioned, what should investors be looking out for as we push into 2022?
So 2022, I think it's the year where we believe we're still significantly undervalued. We're staying disciplined on our strategy. We believe long-term that is going to pay off handsomely for our investors. And so when you look at 2022, it's really staying disciplined. It's finding the right royalties, acquiring them at the right prices, bringing those into the portfolio. We have the benefit of such strong organic growth. I mentioned 170,000 meters being drilled on our royalty-linked assets. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being, if not billions of dollars, are being spent developing some of these assets that we have royalties over. And that's no out-of-pocket cost to VOX. So that organic growth comes to all of our shareholders as true intrinsic value that's being created that we're not putting anything out for. So you're going to see the continuance of that. We think the meters being drilled will probably go up to 200,000. Development expenditures of the project will continue. New assets are going to be brought into production. There's going to be expansions on our existing cash flowing assets. So that's why you buy a royalty company. It's that really levered upside to metal prices with a lot less risk. I think we're pricing in risk well for our investors. We're staying disciplined. And then you look at it from the stock price side of things, and we're targeting a Nasdaq listing sometime in the first half of this year, plus or minus a month or so. So we are working aggressively on that. We hope to be able to accomplish that for our shareholders. We think that's going to fundamentally affect liquidity and demand for our shares. So we also increased research coverage. So we added Laurentian. They came on just as a purely independent research analyst covering our stock and our company, which is fantastic. I think more analysts, and I know more analysts are doing work. So you look at kind of all the underpinnings for a successful publicly listed small cap company and the telltale signs that growth is going to happen, not just in the fundamentals, but obviously our shareholders want to see that reflected in the stock price as well. I think as a management team and as a board, we're executing that plan for our shareholders very, very well.
Nice to see it. So can you give us some updates on your most significant ongoing projects?
Yeah, so we're expecting big expansion out of Janet Ivy. So that's the largest heap leach project in Western Australia. So we acquired that prior to the expansion kind of being fully detailed to the market. So that's come out in an asset that's run by Norton, which is a subsidiary of Cision, which is a $30 billion Hong Kong listed gold producer. So that's a big one. We're expecting a few assets to come online. So that would be Otto Bore in Western Australia. That would be Piton-Bieres in Brazil. Potentially we have a royalty over the vanadium project that Bushveld operates, and others that we could get into. But there's a lot of growth that's happening in the portfolio. So expansions, new assets coming online, and then look, new studies and new engineering studies that are starting to put economics around projects that had yet to have economics put around them. So some discoveries out of Western Australia for us on our land packages that we expect to be in feasibility studies coming out this year. So really just across the board, a lot of growth that our shareholders and our business is not having to pay for, but obviously getting the intrinsic value from that.
Very exciting. So in terms of the company's vision for 2022, what would you say would be your main focus for VOX Royalties?
I believe that the market and the investor awareness around VOX is increasing, and the appreciation for our discipline on finding really good royalties at really good valuations that have these significant catalysts. It's the royalty sector is a very competitive space, and that actually helps us. As odd as that sounds, the fact that asset values have gone up so much, but we continue to be able to find ways to find good deals at fair valuations for our shareholders and for the sellers. Is really a testament to the systematic advantage that we've created in the sector. And as you look at that continuing to play out, and really just the continued focus on making very diligent, very disciplined acquisitions and allowing the value in our portfolio to showcase itself, I think we've got a winning business model, and I think we've got a winning plan for 2022 success and ultimately achieving a re-rate in our valuation. We don't need a re-rate in our valuation. The amount of accretive activity that we have in the pipeline is absolutely phenomenal and should continue to really power gains for our shareholders for years to come.
Definitely. I look forward to covering your story as we continue. So as inflation continues to pick up, many companies are suffering due to increased costs. VOX, being a royalty streaming company, has many benefits compared to your traditional exploration or production company. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and Aaron, I think we've kind of talked about this topic before. A lot of others started picking it up, but we were talking about inflation being real, persistent, not transitory. Basically when COVID started, that was kind of the conversations we were having, and as you looked at the data kind of rolling in, where everyone, inflation caught a lot of people and investors by surprise. I don't think it caught you by surprise. Certainly didn't catch us by surprise. That being said, take a step back. We factor in backwardation in metal prices, and we use consensus really to make sure that even if metal prices were to stagnate or decline, we're still able to generate a return and margin for our investors. And I think that's key when you have investors looking at the metal space. Not many companies do that. They usually kind of start believing in the optimism around metal prices, and that's okay at a personal level. Make sure that the stewards of your capital are pricing in some pretty reasonable risk on metal pricing and going to deliver you returns either way. But as it comes to inflation, look, it's hard. It's not transitory. I think everyone acknowledges that now. That has typically led to pretty buoyant times in terms of commodity prices. And I saw a report yesterday that surveyed institutional investors and what asset classes they most favored. Commodities were at the very high end of that ranking. So I think as we continue to get deeper into the year, there's going to be some, I think, capitulation in terms of investor interest around metals as that inflation hedge. And look, it should be buoyant for the sector. It should be buoyant for the prices. And for us, that just turbocharges what we're already doing really, really well.
Couldn't agree more. So as we look at 2022 and beyond, what are your thoughts on the commodity markets? I know we talked a little bit about inflation right now, but how do you feel about them?
I think it's a tough question to answer succinctly, but I think the commodity markets are in a good place. I think they're ripe for appreciation. That being said, I think we're in a really, really volatile state in the markets. And I think that volatility is going to continue. So in my opinion, this is me kind of stepping back from CEO and spokesperson for VOX Royalty Corp. I think investors, picking best of breed, probably, maybe less speculative picks as there's a lot of volatility, but that volatility does create opportunities. So you kind of got to know what your thresholds for risk are, what you're looking to achieve. I don't think that this kind of the general market upswelling of valuations continues. Obviously, with interest rates rising, that's really hammering companies that have cash flow way out in the future because you're discounting those cash flows at a much, much higher risk-free rate, right? So, and risk premiums have increased. So I think you've got to look at companies, I think VOX fits this mold where cash flow is increasing now. We're not buying assets that are 20 years out from production. We're really focused on assets that are going to be driving towards production in the next 2 to 5 years, if not sooner. And so when you start to look at that matrix of what you're investing, what your risk thresholds are, where do you think there's opportunities to make money in this market? I think VOX checks a lot of boxes. Commodities, we're pretty risk averse in terms of how we build our portfolio, but we build in a lot of upside that we don't pay for and our shareholders don't pay for. So you factor all that in. It's kind of a general sentiment, but I do think we check a lot of boxes as investors kind of look at what their strategy is going to be for 2022.
Definitely. So where's the best place for investors to find out more information about the company?
So voxroyalty.com, always a good place to start. We're on all of the normal social media channels. So if you want to get in touch, and then ir@voxroyalty.com. If you have any specific questions that Aaron or I can't answer on this forum, happy to field emails. And I'm usually on there pretty often answering directly. So happy to engage and happy to be in touch on any other questions or information requests that come up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kyle. I know it's going to be a busy year. You guys are going to be up to a lot of things, and I look forward to having you back on for more updates. I'm sure we will.
Thanks, Aaron. It's been a pleasure as always.
If you like these videos, kindly hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications. Drop us a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. And finally, always remember, Departures Capital is for information, education, and entertainment purposes only. Don't buy or sell a stock because you heard it on here. Buy or sell a stock because you've done your research, you've done your thorough due diligence, and you're making your own personal investment decisions for yourself. This video is not financial advice. Furthermore, this video may or may not have been sponsored by the companies that we've profiled within this video, and we may or may not own shares of any of the profiled companies in this video. If you want to know the full disclosure details, check the description down below along with thoroughly reading our disclaimer. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.